Important things that I think are really true advancements in the art of making realistic motion and realistic visuals on the screen that relate to human motion. We used motion capture very effectively to replicate the performance of Arnold Vosloo.
At first, I was very worried that I'd be able to sort of do what I was hired, which was to act amongst and amidst all the special effects requirements, because sometimes there were sort of physical parameters on what I couldn't do. Meaning I had to do the stuff in a certain way so that you could see the effects. It's no good if my jaw was going to be rotted. It's no good to play the scene like that. So they had to place me sometimes physically and direct me.
We spent 2 days with Arnold in motion capture, replicating every scene in the film that he had done over the course of the previous 6 months, where he needed to be driving the motion of the mummy creature. And we had with us all of the background photography so that we could go and remind him of each scene and actually overlay on those scenes the motion capture animation, at least in some rough form, oftentimes just a skeleton, but enough for us to see that, yes, this was going to fit into our much kind of a replication of the action. And we had Steve there and I was there, and we were trying to make sure that we had everything we needed in order to have a good foundation for animation. So we worked with Arnold really, really closely.
I kind of just, after the second or third day, I knew I was in such good hands, not just on Steve Summers' side, but on John Burton and his ILM crew, that I just said, look, guys, sometimes I don't understand what it is that the effect's going to be, because they almost have this other computer language that, no one understands but them. And I said, don't even bother explaining it to me. Just tell me to the letter, to the T, what it is that you want me to do physically, and once you set those parameters, then I'll inject whatever, sort of performance I have to, into that and to make it come alive, So they're the best in the business, and once you trust them, you can fly.
Motion capture is where you take a performer of some type and you track the various positions of their body using a computer to basically try to correlate in three-dimensional space where they are and where the parts of their body are, which sounds like a lot of complicated gobbledygook. And but the basic way that it's done is that you use some kind of markers, either a magnetic tracker or a little, it's kind of like a ping pong ball with reflective tape on it, and you can track that using optical cameras. We use infrared cameras to bounce light off of these little tracking balls that are placed all over the actor's body. And by using 7 cameras in a big room, we can use the computer to correlate where each ball is. 7 cameras see a ball, they know that's the same ball. They can then triangulate using relatively simple geometry to figure out where that ball is on any given frame. So as someone walks through a space with all these tracking markers all over them, what we do then is crunch all those numbers, and what we end up with is a position of the knee, a position of the foot, a position of the elbow, a position of the shoulder, everywhere on his body. And then we have our own software which constructs that back onto a skeleton, and we can then reconstruct that motion in 3 dimensions and map just about anything we want onto it.
It's the basis for which the animation is built. It gives the audience the feel that the actor himself is the creature, because you're transferring his movement into our CG environment.
What we did here is we took the motion capture from Arnold and used that to make sure that our creature looked and acted and behaved like Arnold Vosloo. But we also then used our character animation skills and the fine animators that we have here at ILM to do the facial animation and the fine finger gestures and those sorts of things, which are very difficult to capture. So we came up with a really tremendous synthesis of a new technology of capturing data, if you will, of a performance of a top flight first unit actor, and melding that in with our top flight character animation skills and creating something on the screen that's some sort of synthesis of.
one of the early shots in the film where we have our computer-generated scarab beetles. And in this case, we've had the actor who's performing on the film set, and we've got film footage of him writhing around in the bandages. What we've got to do is add some scarab beetles to that. And so the first thing we need to do is match his movements. We create a computerised version of the mummified guy and have him moving around exactly like the guy did on set. And then we put little lines on him where some of our hero beetles are going to move. We've built a little scarab in the computer and we've painted that and created some material so that its skin looks all shiny and so it looks like a beetle. And we have one of the animators has created a run cycle for that guy. So what we do is map out where it will go on the man, and we let it run along these paths. So that takes care of our heroes, but as you can see, we've got tons of these guys, and you know, more is what we're aiming for on this. And so what we've done there is we've taken a system where we represent each scarab by what we call a particle in a particle system. And so we have all these little points that represent the scarabs falling out of the bucket here, and we've avoid each other, and then they're blown by the wind just so it doesn't look like, you know, a regular pattern. They'd actually shot this guy on location, and they'd put all the locusts into a refrigerator to make them a bit dopey, and then just put them all over his body. So when we got the plate, there was already quite a few just sitting there, but they weren't flying at all. So we've added in a whole heap here flying around, and there's actually a couple of real ones that jump off, and you can't tell the difference.
What have we done? He can even barf flies, which is great fun to watch.
He releases a plague of flies into a marketplace where we have people running around, you know, scattering and trying to protect themselves from these bugs.
We ended up replacing the whole lower half of the mummy's face, and then we had to take that, match him in the computer, so we'd have some object so that the flies could actually, we'd know where they would come out of, and so that we could hide them down his throat as they well up here. When I say fairly simple, it's a particle render. We've done a particle simulation using Maya software package, and so each grain of sand is represented by a particle in the computer, and we're able to change the colour of that and add shadows and that sort of thing to try and look like it's a wall made of sand. So what we want to do is have the mummy's face come out of that. What we've done here is taken a model of the actor's head and digitised that and done some model work to make it match our needs. And an animator has created some different face shapes and that sort of thing. In this case, we really wanted to elongate and stretch the face as it comes out of the sand, because it's supposed to be made of sand. So we added an extra set of controls that would allow us to really pull down on that and to really get these exaggerated expressions. From that, we create this depth map, we call it. Essentially, it's a render of this where the nearest point comes out white and the farthest away point comes out black. And we can use this information with our particles that I showed earlier to create this image of the face in the sand. So here you can see a test where we've got essentially a fairly static, for this example, set of particles. Each of these will be, when we've added the colouring and that sort of thing, will represent sand particles. And we've taken that image of the face and pushed that through here, and we're actually able to affect what happens to the particles based on that image. So we can use that in the actual final stage where we take the particles and render them to give a gross shape of the face, and then we can also use it in our particle simulation that's creating the action of the sand so that it looks like the sand is being distorted by the face as it emerges. And then the result of all that is this final image of a face emerging from the sand.
Sort of awkwardness in doing special effects where clearly you're not working with any acting partner, but then again there's some advantages to it. The awkward bits is you may think that you're overacting, throwing your jaw open and screaming and expecting someone to come and take away my union card, but when you see the end result, obviously there's a creature that's put in there, and whatever response you gave is entirely appropriate.
You have to think of how the actors or the stunt doubles are going to react to the CGI images. So you work closely, again, with the visual effects people to see what they need, and especially what they don't need. You know, it's very difficult sometimes because you've got to know how things are going to react, and you've got nothing to react to.
An advantage to working with someone who's not there, in this case, was our sequence at the end, which is an homage directly to Ray Harryhausen in the skeleton fight from Sinbad, when Rick takes on a room.
Able to understand the sorts of things that we were bringing to the screen. He'd worked on George of the Jungle, so he knew a bit about how to work with synthetic creatures that aren't there when you are. And he did some incredible fight scenes, which end up being him alone with 12 computer-generated creatures. And when you see these scenes and you see him fighting against something that's not even there with real strength and real power, boy, that made our job a lot easier.
To create the effect, I learned a choreography with a bunch of stuntmen. Shot 2 passes with motion capture control cameras, and of course the stunt players were removed. John Burton from Industrial Light and Magic inserted mummies.
He was able to bring that physical power to the screen and hit the marks that we wanted them to hit with the motion control cameras flying all over everywhere. And that really allowed us to take our digital creatures and put them right in there with him, and they look and act like they're in the same space.
I could swing a sword right through plain air instead of like having to pull my punch for a stuntman, because obviously you wouldn't want to injure someone. So the effects are just so much more fluid and engaging.
Brandon in that particular take was really good. He hit his cues really well, and I think he acted the shot so well for us that we really could feed off his actual performance. So basically we got the action of Brandon, 21 different characters that have been added, captured and added one after another in the shot to sync in the action of Brandon. So it's really a combo of different techniques: procedural animation, motion capture, data gathering, and then lots of keyframe animation to get the performance right and the way we wanted it.
Mummies.
There's 2 things we can do with the digital mummies. We can eat bits away of them so that they couldn't possibly ever have been played by a human, and the other thing we can do is chop them up. Here I've just got a pretty crude animation that I did. This gives you the general idea of the mummy just being hit by our hero. Well, we've really got 2 mummies here, one of whom flies off and the other which is left standing here. What we've done is using lighting and different types of texture maps and a variety of computer techniques, we've actually had to create what's left behind and set it up so that we can easily go from this intact guy to this guy in 2 halves. The things that we'll add to this are obviously flying dust and bits of mummy stuff that fly all over the place to finish the effect off.
To grasp the audience that way.
I think it's a really good combination of what we can bring to filmmaking as a visual effect artist in terms of the variety and the scope of the work we've done, and also breaking new ground and raising the audience expectation to a new level.
If it's groundbreaking and it looks good, the audience is going to love it, and if it tells the story, the director's going to like it. They all kind of tie together.
You want people to go, wow, be they the director or the audience, or us, actually. I mean, you do want to have a challenge, that's for sure. I mean, that's what keeps it interesting, you know, always trying to make it better and better.
We will always be relying on actors to set the marks for what performance should be. And you're not going to be able to make a movie that's got performance that's the equal of great actors by using something that's not great actors.
The technology